Welcome to Q&A Selling Online, with answers to questions about creating an online empire, promoting products, or building a brand. Your host, private label and e-commerce entrepreneur, Quinn Amorm.
Welcome back to the show, my friends. Today we have Dan Murray-Serter with us. He's the co-founder at Heights, and he is the host of one of UK's top business podcasts, Secret Leaders. Dan, how's it going?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me, Quinn.
It's a pleasure having you here, Dan. And I want to start by asking you about your podcast. You were number one business podcast in the UK at one point. And are you still number one? Has it changed?
We're not currently number one, but that is also because we're in between seasons. So the way that we decided to set up the podcast was not that strategic. You know, we just kind of went for it and thought we'd see what happened. And it was a few years ago, but we just ended up recording 15 episodes and seeing how that goes. And we got to about 25,000 downloads by the end of the first series. So we were like, that's actually pretty good social proof. Let's do another one. And just by that logic, it had been a few months. We'd waited a bit and we planned to do another 15. And so that's kind of how we've done it. Like every series, we've done just 15 episodes. And there's a benefit to that, which is you can be much more selective with your quality of guests. You know, you have the less is more strategy. There's really two kind of strategies is what I've learned after the fact in podcasting. One is consistency. So that is always putting out content, 1 or 2 episodes a week and just going for it. And that's a very successful strategy for a lot of people. And then the other one is kind of what we do, which is a bit more scarcity, which is, you know, a select number of episodes per series and then release them more strategically. And that's been really beneficial. And, you know, we've had really awesome people. Usually at the start and the end of the series, we have a big guest. So we'll have like, you know, the founder of Slack or the founder of ClassPass or the founder of, you know, Calm or Babylon or Uber. We've had some massive guests, you know, and that, you know, they're usually episode 1 or the last episode. And then in between, we've got lots of other brilliant guests, but like we usually put the very PRable ones right at the start or right at the end. That's usually why we get a lot of awareness, which helps to drive us to the number 1 spot at the start of the series. And we tend to stay there throughout. But then obviously after 15 weeks, we don't put out anything for another 4, 5, 6 months. So it's very fair that it drops.
Wow. So 4 or 5 months of nothing. All right. And you started
which is actually crazy. So that's actually crazy. I agree. But what's interesting is that now we've got almost 100 episodes. So now over the years, like there's a good back catalogue. So now we're starting to, you know, spend some more time thinking about how do we market the back episodes and stuff. Whereas when it was just 1 or 2 series, you know, you get through that content quite quickly as a listener and you're kind of done. And that's problematic. Whereas now for a listener that comes in on a new episode, like they've got like a treasure trove of content. If they like that, they've got a treasure trove of really interesting guests for the other ones as well.
Got it. So it's almost like a sound-only Netflix series. So they can binge listen it and then go to the next. All right.
Exactly.
And you started the podcasting. It's just almost 5 years old, your show. How did you get started with it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, a friend of mine, I was already doing interviews with, so my last company, Grabble, was quite successful over here in Europe. And so I was lucky because we had really great investors, like well-recognized investors and entrepreneurs that were backing us at the time. And, you know, I would go for a drink with them and they would give me all of these lessons and insights about the amazing stuff they did. So then I was kind of like, hey, like this would be awesome if you would share it like in an audience, right? I'm happy to, like, to interview you in front of like 30 or 40 other entrepreneurs and we can just like give away free tickets. But I think it'd be really interesting. And they said yes. And then I did a few of them and I was like, you know, these stories are so good and so valuable to people. If you're willing to be that vulnerable and honest about your journey, it will help people. So would you be interested in doing that as a podcast? But I didn't know how to do anything in podcasting. And like, you know, 5 years ago, it just wasn't where it is now. So, you know, you could start up really easily and get going, but not quite as easily as today. And I was lucky because I had a friend, Rich, who is my producer and co-founder on the show, who had just started a podcast and just figured out how to do it. And he'd done like a couple of episodes and I've listened to them and I was like, dude, these are kind of crap. Like, they're not very interesting. But I have like super interesting friends and a really great network. And I'm like, want to hone my skills in interviewing anyway. And you like producing podcasts. So this seems like a perfect match, right? I've got the content and the network and you've got like the technical know-how. Why don't we just team up and do that? And He was like, yeah, I mean, he was only 2 episodes in, right? So me being like, your content's kind of crap. He was like, yeah, I know. So we were lucky. So literally we just started doing it, right? And I think that's always the best lesson for any entrepreneur, which is there is never a good time to start anything. So you kind of just got to do it. And if you do it with low ego as well, you get to go into it and say, is this working? Is this not? How can I improve it? Or is it worth improving? And for us, we always said the same thing, which is let's just do 15 because we will enjoy it and we think it will be fun and we're doing that for us. And at the end, let's assess and let's not look at the numbers until the end, which is also quite unconventional. We were like, let's not look at how it's going until episode 15, and then let's just see what's happened in one go. So that's quite fun.
Wow. So it's so hard at the beginning not to look at the stats, not to look at to find out, is anybody really listening or am I just wasting my time? And to be honest, at the beginning, you wouldn't have many stats, right? So you said you had 25,000. That's actually impressive.
But it was a different time.
Yes, true.
So 5 years ago, it was a lot easier to get 25,000 listeners to your podcast than now, for sure. A lot less listeners of podcasts, but if you are a listener of a podcast, you're more likely to find us than finding one now. It's just harder. Plus, we were niche, and it's all about finding your niche, right? As in, at the time, that was we're going to find business leaders of well-known brands, but not well-known business leaders. So in Europe, these are all of our interviewees are famous brand owners, as in they're famous brands over here, but they're not famous people. So they're not like your Richard Bransons or people like that who you've heard the story a million times and you kind of know what he's about and all this stuff. It's actually, I've heard of that brand a million times, but I never figured out who it is that's running it. That would be really interesting to listen to. And that was the idea behind Secret Leaders. So, it was quite like a niche pinpoint concept behind, how to pick our guests. And now as it's grown, it's gone a little bit outside that remit because, like I said, obviously, we do have a lot of very well-known brand founders, but where we can, we always try and get the the interesting lesser known ones. So Slack is a great example. Everyone's very familiar with Stuart Butterfield, but his equal shareholder and co-founder is a guy called Cal Henderson, who's the CTO. Slack is a tech product, and he's English, so funnily enough, he was actually a listener of the show, and he got in contact and was like, I'd love to be on the show. He's actually been on twice now, but he came and interviewed with us a week before their IPO. So, he came and interviewed with us in our studio, and a week later, they're worth $18 billion. It's wow. Amazing. Yeah.
Dan, there's something I got to ask you. Is it true your dad told Cambridge University to piss off?
Yeah, I get that one a lot, and it's 100% true. So the backstory to that is, well, actually, you wouldn't know this, but in the UK right now, there's a massive scandal with A-level results. So A-level is what we basically do to get into university here. And in the UK, the system is, there's something called UCAS, and basically you apply based on your grades, and then you can apply to all the universities in the country based on your predicted grades. Obviously, because of the coronavirus this year, no one got to take their exams. And so they had some computer algorithm predict people's grades. And loads of kids have not gotten the grades via predictions and not been getting into the universities they wanted because of an algorithm, which is obviously a total PR disaster. And now the government is backtracking. It's crazy. Anyway, in my year, very strangely, there was basically a mess up with my grades. And my teachers predicted me 3 Bs, even though I previously got 4 As. So they literally made a mistake. And so what happened was I didn't get into any of the universities that I was applying for. I got rejected by all of them. But in the UK, the only universities that don't go through that system are Oxford and Cambridge. So you have to pick whether you'd like to go to Oxford or Cambridge. And then you have to do the whole separate entry exam system outside of the rest of the exam system as well. So you can pick your Bristol and Manchester and all this UCL, whatever. But if you want Oxford and Cambridge, you've got to do it all again and just with them. And so because of that, I got rejected from all other universities, but I got into Cambridge because they don't look at UCAS. They don't care what your predicted grades are. You have to do your own exams. And so it was a very odd thing because it's very odd to only get into the best school in the country, but nothing else, but rejected, not just nothing else, but rejected from everywhere else. And because of that, we didn't know this at the time, right? We didn't know that's why I'd been rejected. So it was April Fool's Day. And Cambridge University called up my house to tell my parents, because it's all very personal. This is how Cambridge works. You apply to a college, they have a dean. It's very Harry Potter. It's exactly how you imagine it. And they, the dean called up my parents to tell them that I got accepted. And because I'd been rejected from everywhere else, my dad thought it was his brother playing a joke on him, because April Fool's Day is a very unfortunate day to have this good news. Yes. And told him to piss off and put the phone down on him. Very fortunately, he called back and spoke to my mother. But it was hilarious, and always something that my mum brings up every so often, especially on April Fools.
Yes, you never know. Well,
exactly.
So, since you started business, any type of business, what is the best thing that has happened to you?
I think that's a great question. The best thing that's happened to me in business has probably been failing. So my last business, Grabble, was very popular. It grew relatively quickly. I mean, it grew slowly at first. After a year, it had like no growth whatsoever. But then a year later, it basically went viral. Over here, it became the #1 shopping app in Europe. It was a fashion shopping app. It was nicknamed the Tinder of fashion, just to give you like an idea of how sort of viral it was. And it was a really great journey. Over 4 years, we raised millions of pounds, and we grew a team really fast, and I learned a lot. But in the end, the business model was not sustainable, and we knew that. And we had a couple of offers to buy the company, and they got rejected by investors because we were actually quite open to it. And the thing is, just going through that experience, you just learn a lot. I was 26, 27 at the time of doing it. And so, the benefit of learning 10, 15 years worth of lessons over 3 or 4 years is an amazing opportunity for anyone who's, at any stage of your life. I don't really think it's about your age, but I think if you can pack in lots of lessons over a short period of time, that's a really meaningful period of your life to look back on. Because, you can eke out those lessons over 10 or 15 years, or you can learn them in 2 or 3. And so the benefit of that is, I've had the benefit of starting a new company with a lot of insight that I think my normal career trajectory would have probably seen me, if I was to consider entrepreneurship, because I was in advertising before. So if I was to consider entrepreneurship, I might be mid-30s, early 40s before I was interested in trying it. Statistically, that's when all the successful founders actually exist outside of your fucking Evans, Spiegel, and Mark Zuckerbergs. The reality is almost all of the successful entrepreneurs start in their 40s. And I think I would have gone through that. And I think, there's a very good chance that that'll be me as well, right? There's a very good chance I won't be, materially really successful till I'm 40. And well, why is that? Because I need to accumulate a lot of lessons and learning first. So I think fast forwarding a lot of those opportunities in my life has been really meaningful. And like I say, it's helped me when starting up again to really think thoughtfully about the decisions we're making, the people we're hiring, understanding that, even small decisions have a big knock-on effect later down the line, all sorts of things like that.
That is very powerful. And tell me something, that app is completely gone now?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It is. So we had 2 apps in the company. We had Popcorn and Grabble. Popcorn was quite well known internationally, whereas Grabble was only in the UK. So Popcorn was a movie trailers app, and people could download and watch movies on there. And it went pretty viral. And that was really, really fun as well. We have loads of hilarious stories of that, going viral in Saudi Arabia and going viral in Sweden and being like, what the fuck is even going on? Like, not even trying to do that. Didn't even have any social media accounts for it. And it was just getting millions of downloads, being featured by Apple all the time. It was just one of those like quite funny success stories. But sadly, both of them just had very complicated business models, right? This is the problem with a lot of digital products. It's a total. It's really a total race to the bottom in terms of who can offer the best leverage or arbitrage on margin. And with that, you need extreme growth, and it's all very stressful for people. And, consumers are not, I say stressful for people, stressful for the team. Consumers are not really willing to pay for digital products so often. And if they are, they need to be really niche. right? People will always pay for like a niche, coaching, like accelerator, consultant, or whatever that stuff might be that you see on Facebook all the time. If you feel like you're learning personal development, etc., sure, people put money with that. But one of my really good friends is the founder of Calm, because again, like the Calm founders are both English, so I've known them for a long time. And Michael is a billion-dollar, well, two-time unicorn founder now. Actually, his last company was unicorn as well.
Wow.
And like they even struggled to make people pay for Calm. That's a massive product that is doing good in the world. It's adding loads of value. It's like $5 a month or something, and still most people don't pay for it.
Is that meditation app?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow, I have
exactly.
it. I have that too.
It's great. It's great, but just a lot of people, this is it's a great example of just how hard it is to get people to pay for digital products. So I think, the biggest lesson that I ever learned in business is the most obvious one, which is no business model, no business. So, it's hard to like extrapolate too much from these sort of unique and individual insights, but ultimately, if you don't start with where the margin is in your business and how you're going to be able to live off it and then hire people, so hard. I mean, I honestly think outside of the Valley, and even inside the Valley now, people are starting to be quite skeptical about those types of businesses as well. But the days of being able to just build a Pinterest or just build a Twitter, it's much harder now. People really not just going to throw tens of millions of dollars at you necessarily just to support that model. You've got to really figure out where your money's going to come from.
Exactly. Yeah, I believe so. Tell me something, Dan. What is Heights?
Well, I'm glad you asked, other than the fantastic T-shirt that I'm wearing. So Heights is my company. I started it with my best friend and co-founder, Joel, and it is a brain health and mental wellness company. So the vision that we have for the company is to build the #1 consumer brand for all things brain health and mental wellness and mental performance. So what that means is focusing on not just the nutrition side, which I think is like the most overlooked and important area of mental health and mental well-being, which we can come on to. So covering the nutrition side, but also information. So creating really meaningful content that's accessible and informative and helpful and freely available to people, but all scientific and science-backed, to, a range of, books and conferences. And, I have this whole wonderful vision, much like my friend Michael that I mentioned earlier from Calm. Like his end game vision is to have Calm Island. He has this idea that there's going to one day build an island. And I think it's really important to have like some idea of, what does the #1 consumer brand around this topic look like? What kind of products and services do they sell? And what do I buy into, and why do I buy into them? And for us, the way that we've started this journey is through nutrition. So we've created one product, which is here. It's called our Smart Supplement. It is a super potent and powerful. I'm opening my wife's here just to show you a capsule. But these capsules, which obviously you won't be able to hear on audio, but you'll see it's a capsule floating inside the oil.
Wow.
So it is a patented capsule design that essentially slow releases the nutrients into your gut, and 2 of these a day gives you all of your plant-based omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin C, all your B vitamins, blueberry extract, a very powerful antioxidant. So basically work with a world-leading neuroscientist to design from the ground up. What are the things your brain needs? What are the natural nutrients your brain needs according to science to bring you above your baseline and into your heights? So this is really like an everyday replacement for a multivitamin, essentially. There's a very big popular category at the moment called nootropics. This is not necessarily a nootropic because a nootropic is considered a smart drug. It's all about quick fixes, etc. Whereas sadly, there are no quick fixes on the road to mental well-being any more than you can go for one run and be physically fit. It's a process and it takes commitment, but according to science, your brain is an organ and it needs certain nutrients to thrive, and you should get them from your food. And we say to everyone, don't take our product, have a better diet. And here are all the recipes, and here are all the things that you can do to do that at home. And we make that super clear and accessible in our weekly newsletter, on our website, everything. Super important. A supplement is a supplement, and it's a nice to have. However, it is quite difficult to get all the nutrients that your brain needs. You need to eat quite a lot, and you need to really put your brain first in everything that you're eating. And the second best thing to do is not to ignore it. So we focus super hard on the science and create a product that is not only unique looking, but unique in its function, and as you've seen, unique in its bottle design. So we work with a very famous agency called Pentagram, also the agency that made the iPod and the Kindle and all sorts of crazy stuff. But to make our bottle design, because we wanted to create something that was not only really sustainable and environmentally friendly, but can fit through the letterbox with 60 capsules. So like most pills, we found that most pills and products that people have come in the same box, same round tub, basically. Then what happens is most people keep them in a supplement cupboard. And when you keep something out of sight, it's out of mind. And if it's out of mind, you forget about the habit that you've already promised yourself to do. So by creating something completely new that stood out and stands out for our customers, that encourages them to put it on their bedside table, or as I am now in my living room, and have it out front of mind and in my eyesight, which means you remember the habit, which means you get into a habit, which means you do it every day, which means you are looking after your brain's health every day. So we really try and combine, some of the things we learned building a mobile product at Gravel, right? Like, what are design principles? How do you bring customer design and UX principles into things like a customer experience of taking vitamins? And so, again, very lucky to have had years of understanding customer development in a different and adjacent industry, and then applying it to a new industry that I don't really know anything about. So by working with expert dietitians and nutritionists and neuroscientists, we get to figure out what the formula is, and then actually how we package it together to create a really meaningful customer experience is the bit that really excites us.
And this is just so fantastic, because this is something that I personally I love as an entrepreneur, and I think most entrepreneurs are always trying to improve their performance. And one of the main thing I believe is focus, the lack of focus and concentration. So I do everything that I can to try to improve myself. And for example, 3 years ago, I decided to go plant-based, and I've been plant-based for 3 years. And one of the hard things is that we know that normally brain foods are fats.
Yeah.
And most fats that you find are animal fats, and that goes against what I'm trying to do. So you mentioned that this is plant-based.
Correct.
Is that right?
And in fact, funny timing, like as we were speaking, I got the editor for a publication called Plant-Based News, which is the biggest plant-based website in the world. And they're actually doing they've literally just featured us on their website. He was just messaging me right now. So funny timing, but also my journey into this space started with me being plant-based too. So I went from being a carnivore all my life to about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, switching to being plant-based as well. And actually what happened to me was after a year, I basically got insomnia and really, really bad anxiety. And I didn't put two and two together, by the way, at all. And actually, I'm someone who does things like I check my bloods quite regularly. I'm quite good at my personal wellness because my father passed away a few years ago from illness. So, I'm very conscious of my wellness. And so if I make a big decision like plant-based, for me, I decided to go plant-based because of environmental reasons. That's my choice. Okay. And animal reasons. If I move over here, so I've got a big fluffy cat lying there, and there's another one somewhere around here. So anyway, I decided it wasn't really for me anymore to eat meat. However, I never really realized the nutritional impact of that. I wasn't thinking about it properly. Not enough people told me. People did say B12, and so I was taking B12. But that was it. No one really knew anything else. And so I ended up getting insomnia and really bad anxiety. And I was like so bad for 6 months, basically. And I tried all different things to cure it. Therapy, sleep therapy, meditation, more exercise, alcohol, no alcohol, coffee, no coffee, like you name a thing. And I was doing it. Nothing worked. Basically, about 5 months in, I went to see a dietitian and very simply was told by her, it's probably your diet. I see loads of vegans, especially new ones, that come in and complain about all sorts of mental health problems. really simply, your brain is an organ. It's made of 60% fat. 90% of that fat is the compound DHA. DHA is very hard to get from plant food. You basically only get it in like flaxseed and algae, which is where our omega-3 is sourced. And then she was like, "But how often are you going around eating algae?" And I'm like, "Well, not that often, to be honest." And that's the case with most of us, right? As you go from eating lots of fish to not eating it, and suddenly you're not getting the fats that you need, the healthy fats. So she made it really simple for me and was like, "I just recommend you take these 3 supplements, super high quality ones. These are the ones I recommend. Take DHA, omega-3, blueberry extract, and a B vitamin complex, and then see how that goes." And within 2 weeks, I was sleeping like a baby. My anxiety had gone away. I was super surprised by it. I started to really geek out on the science about it. I was like, how is this so obvious? And the truth of the matter is there's loads and loads of scientific papers about exactly this. Not just about how those ingredients are really good for our mental health and they help our performance. And if you're having a mental health problem, it's often a deficiency and can be solved like that. But also the other side, which is that, a plant-based diet creates nutritional deficiencies. No problem. I wasn't doing it for my health personally. I was doing it because of my beliefs. I can stick to my beliefs if I supplement. No problem. No harm done. And I think it's really interesting because getting into the vegan community, so to speak, and I always say plant-based, not vegan, because vegans is like the extreme version of the same thing to me.
Exactly.
But the vegans, are very offended by this stuff, right? The suggestion that you can't get everything from plants. And it's like, look, maybe you could once upon a time, but now you can't. And your mental health is not something to dick around with. So if it's totally possible to be plant-based without being really pious and stubborn, at the end of the day, if you want to look after your mental well-being, then take it seriously. And the one thing does not have to compromise the other. So for us, creating a really high quality product that was plant-based from the start was really, really paramount importance. And then everything that stems from there is great too, right? Because if you create a plant-based product, you're instantly thinking about the environment anyway, realistically. By default, you care more about that stuff in your decisions. And so, we're a B corporation. We think a lot about our supply chain. We think a lot about, the weight of our products, where our outer packaging is sourced from. So our outer packaging is completely biodegradable. You can compost it. All sorts of things that created lots of different decision frameworks for us that have helped us be a more and more sustainable brand. And I think it's very difficult to tell people in 2020 that you're a brand that cares about brain health and mental wellness when a lot of people's anxiety and mental health comes down to considerations about the planet we live in. So then how can you buy and support a company that doesn't seem to care about those things and those values as well? That's not really supporting that person's mental well-being. So, these things all sort of, to us, logically form that kind of standard of a consideration framework.
So many things about your product, all the uniqueness of the product, make it it's basically I do something similar. I create products, but they're private label products. Although they're private label means it's something that already existed, but I try to create something unique about it just so it's easier for me to compete. So your product, almost everything about it is unique. Did it fly off the shelves right away, or are you selling online?
So we're a direct to consumer. So everything has been online, and the truth of the matter is we launched in January, and it's been a strange time to launch, right? As in, we're very lucky because we launched in January and not March for starters. So that's good. But the truth of the matter is, we've actually managed. The right way of expressing this is less of a supply and demand thing and more of a trying to figure out how our manufacturing supply chain is going to work during COVID, right? First, as entrepreneurs, we had to figure out how a supply chain works in the first place, having never done a physical product before. Suddenly, COVID comes in 2 months into you selling, and suddenly you've got to really think about the timelines. How, it takes 6 months to reorder products and everything else. So we've actually had to stagger, sadly, some of the demand that we've had on our products. So the simple answer to, because it's a subscription, so it's a monthly subscription that comes through your letterbox, We've had to prioritize existing customers that are maintaining getting their product next month, so to speak, and stop new customers from being able to purchase and putting them on the waiting list, which is, created this sort of imaginary concept of scarcity. But that concept is actually pretty real based on coronavirus and what we've been able to do. So we're very, very lucky because we've got so many amazing customers. I mean, one of our pre-launch strategies was to create a newsletter on brain health and mental wellness, but all from science. So a 3-minute read on mental performance that goes out every Sunday from basically a science story. But like a full spectrum. So like this one, for example, that I've just written that's going out this Sunday is all on our mental health relationship with food. And discussing the science behind that and why that exists and why some of us, feel guilty about eating a snack, but all very punchy, right? A 3-minute read. So it's very snappy. And if you want to read more of the science, we link off to the articles. And that strategy led us to having super high profile customers. So, we've got very famous entrepreneurs over here, unicorn founders, celebrities, authors, all sorts that are, readers of the newsletter and then found out about the product first. And then, we're inbound emailing us, can I get a special invite to get it early and all this stuff. So we were very, very, very lucky. So by the time we were made available to the public, we actually have sold out consistently, and until literally, September now. So literally until the end of July. The end of July was the first time we ever started doing any advertising. Everything else has just been word of mouth in our newsletter until then.
Wow, impressive. As you were speaking and you showed the bottle and then the pill that has a pill inside that's floating, that is just so, and I guess you said it is trademarked, that process. It's so fantastic that I was here thinking like, okay, I want this. And then on top of it, it's plant-based. And from what I saw on your site, it has 19, is that it?
Yep.
19 fatty acids?
No, 19 of the fats and minerals that your brain and body need, and all in the most bioavailable forms with no caking agents or synthetic fillers. So this is also very important because when we were doing our research on the supplement industry, we didn't really know this at the time, but we do now. Basically, a lot of it is a sham. So a lot of it has really like chalk, and even some products have cyanide, which sounds a bit ridiculous, but it's true, just to fill up a product. So it turns out if you take a pill, for example, using vitamin D is a great example because everyone is recommended to take vitamin D anyway during coronavirus. So vitamin D is like the daily amount of vitamin D is tiny, as in the way that ingredient works is if I showed you it on your hand, you barely see it. So to put it into a capsule of just vitamin D, you've got to pack that up with stuff that makes lots of sense. But the reality is taking a vitamin D pill alone is you're taking 1% vitamin D, 99% filler. Not the end of the world, but the point being, and but this, for the flip side, for example, if you take magnesium is so big that you can't fit it inside a multivitamin. So multivitamins that say that they've got magnesium in it are basically pulling the wool over your eyes because they're putting in the minimum amount that they're legally allowed to say that they've got it in, but not the amount that actually does anything in your body. And this is another thing that we learned that's super interesting, sadly, about the vitamin industry, is there is a difference between the minimum amount that you can put in to make a marketing claim and the amount, according to science, that has an impact on your body. So just to give you one example of where that is real, in 7Cs, which is the #1 best-selling brand in the world for omega-3 oil, their daily dose of their product, and their product's about $15 for a bottle or something, or like $10, $15. It's not expensive, but it is when you find this out. Every single dose is 45 milligrams of omega-3, and the daily dose, the scientific daily dose, as a minimum to have an impact on your body, is 250 milligrams.
Wow.
So if you think about it, you need to take 7 as you need. And they have to put that on their bottle, and it's on their bottle, but it's in such small print you barely see it. So they put in a claim with an asterisk, and on the back, you as the customer, it's your job to read that and to know that. It's very cheeky. And so we do the exact opposite, which is we think that that's bullshit. We think that's unfair. And we think if you can't pack in the scientific amount into your product, you shouldn't market it, which is why we don't have magnesium in our product, because magnesium is an awesome product, and magnesium is something that I think a lot of people should take. However, like I say, you should be taking about 2 full capsules of magnesium if you're supplementing it. And so you can't pack that into a product like ours. It doesn't work that way. So all of the ingredients inside Height are in their scientific daily amounts, and that actually make an impact on your body. And that's one of the reasons why I think our customers actually, over a 1 to 3 month period, we always say it's a 3-month period before you'll actually feel your baseline lifting, because that is literally what science says. But within that timeline, customers actually say that they notice a difference and become sticky long-time customers. And that's really what you want if you're in our space, right? You don't want to be spending money acquiring lots of customers for a month. You want to be acquiring customers on a meaningful promise that are going to buy into the process. That this is going to take me 3 months or so, but it's for my mental well-being. So we created a quarterly subscription as well, so people could do that. And you want them committing because they feel like it's worth their time, and because your brand speaks to them, you're doing good for them, and they're buying into everything that you stand for, and most importantly, what you stand against.
You know what? I like what you said about the marketing thing, the marketing side of things versus what the body actually needs, or the minimum amount that's going to do anything. And I already knew that because I do have some supplements, and I can see the marketing of competitors and what they do and what people believe it is. It's so incredible that people don't like reading, right? I think it looks like we're getting to a more lazy society, that if you put that asterisk in the front, people are lazy to go and read what actually it says in the back. And one of the proof of this is that I had a product that I was selling on Amazon that it was not vitamin C, but it contained vitamin C, right? So it's a skin product, but if you add vitamin C, it's easier to absorb through the skin. So it was not vitamin C, but when COVID happened, all the vitamin C ran out on Amazon, and people started buying my skincare product because it now ranked, right? The algorithm ranked it for vitamin C because the others ran out. And man, the sales increased through the roof because it contained vitamin C. And of course, then I start getting reviews and people saying, well, this is not vitamin C. So it's not. Of course it's not.
Silly.
But it's, it's so easy now that any of those marketers, if they want to use what the minimum law requirements, like you said, they can actually market something differently. Just
sad but true, huh?
Yeah, very sad. So one of the most important things right now is, where can I find and get my subscription, and everybody listening, of Heights?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. You can go to yourheights.com, and one day we'll be big enough to just buy heights.com. But in the meantime, yourheights.com, so we can help you reach your heights. And you can follow us on social at Your Heights on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Yourheights.com. All right. I got it. I'm going to add this to the show notes so everybody can check it out.
And we do sell internationally as well, of course.
Okay, so anywhere, almost anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere. Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you available on platforms like Amazon, Walmart, or anything like that?
At the moment, we just do direct to consumer, and the main reason for that is there's 2 reasons. One is our packaging. So we're very, like we say, environmentally conscious, and we like to keep our compostable packaging, etc., which is quite complicated when you go into places like Amazon and they just want to send everything in boxes. Yeah. And then the second part of that is the way that we actually position this is it's brain food in your through your letterbox and your inbox. And so by capturing your email address, what we actually do is we send you scientific tips on mental well-being throughout your journey. We send you a brain health survey so you can take our test and actually get a score at the start of your month and at the end of your month, see how you've improved by making little lifestyle improvements that we're sending you throughout the month in very, very short little emails. So for us, like, the whole thing is a process. It's an investment in your mental well-being. And seeing like your score go up, even though it's self-administered, seeing how it goes up is like a meaningful endeavor and important to you. But also like us being able to communicate with you as a customer about something as important as your mental well-being and your brain's health is so important to us. We don't really like to outsource that to anyone else.
Fantastic. So you're going to have my email there soon because I have your page open, and I'm going to subscribe here because
amazing. That's one customer. I love it.
Any percentage of increase I can get to my brain power, it is definitely going to help me. So
fantastic. Thank you so much, Quinn.
Dan, thank you. It's a pleasure having you here. And of course, we're going to stay in touch.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, and cheers to all of your listeners.
Thank you.